Squats are the translation of our hips down and up. Different type of people, different body shapes are going to have different looking squats. We're going to go through all that today, but we're going to go over some fundamentals for everybody first. So the first thing that's most important on almost every exercise we do, but especially these full body and lower body based things, is where are our feet and where is our weight in our feet. So on a squat, we want to have our feet about hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider. The taller they are, the more extreme that's going to be. You can have your toes out 5 to 10 degrees, so that's going to be way too much, but a lot of people are going to have issue with their toes straight front to back. We'll show you some accommodations for that, but really most people are going to be out 5 to 10 degrees. It's important that we remain in a little bit more upright posture. I'm going to show you an exception to that here in a little bit, but most of the time our posture is going to be a little more upright. Doesn't mean it's going to be totally upright, and the taller they are, the less that'll be the case. But we want to keep an upright posture. The first thing we're going to look at is weight front to back in the toes. So we want to make sure that we're not going into the toes. We want to make sure that when we go down, we're not falling back in the heels. The weight is going to stay here in the middle of the foot. We are thinking about pulling ourselves down to the ground. As we do that, to create space, our shins are going to go forward a little bit. I don't want to sit into my knees. I'm leading with, literally, I'm going to call it my butthole. I'm leading with my butthole and pulling it straight down, and you can see how my shin travels over my knee. This is the first place we're going to see an issue. You can always test out and see real quick, get your foot up against the wall. Can that person get their knee to the wall? You can even scoot it back just a little bit. Can that person get their knee to the wall with their heel sailing down? If they get stuck right here and their foot comes up and they can't close this down, or they can't dorsiflex, the issue is in their ankle. This is when we bring in the heel risers. This creates artificial dorsiflexion, and their squat will improve immediately if they do this. So if they have bad ankle dorsiflexion, and you'll find that the taller the person is, this will help out a whole lot. So we'll get into that a little bit. So their weight needs to be even front and back. Let's say they don't have any issues, they're able to do that. You'll see people a lot try to sit into their knees. We want to try to cue them up to lead down. I like to use the cue, sit on a toilet seat. If even that's too much, we can put a bench or a box behind them and have them reach for a target and touch. We don't want to sit our weight on that actual target. We just want to touch it. So if they're struggling to go with their hips, put a bench behind them and they can reach down for that. If they go back too much, they'll never get there. And if they go forward, they're going to miss it. And again, I'm leading from here. I want this, and all my pelvic floor muscles, my adductors, my glutes are going to get long here and then stretch up. Sit down, touch, stretch up. We don't want them to sit here, especially rock back and sit all their weight. And we're always teaching them to push through the ground. I'm not trying to lift a weight up. That gets our upper body into it too much. It gets our spine into it too much. We want to drive the ground down, okay? So we're here. Pull yourself down, stand up. Again, watch how much my shins come forward. My weight stays even front to back in the foot. We would much rather sacrifice depth, especially at first. We would much rather sacrifice weight and definitely sacrifice speed in order to achieve good form. That's more important. It will also challenge them more, so they'll feel it more, which is what they actually want. They'll really appreciate that. So if they're really struggling with that, a great way to intro this, along with many other exercises, you're going to see a theme here, is isometrics. So if they're really struggling with the form, let's work on getting them into a good position, weight even. Let's go super slow down, and then when they get to the bottom where they can't move their hips anymore, stop. Make them hold this. If you want to challenge it, they can hold a little weight here. We'll get into how to do a good goblet squat in a minute. But pull down and hold. Talk to them. Memorize this position. Breathe here. This is going to be really hard. You might see them start doing funny stuff. They need to hold still. Pull themselves down. Pause. Own this. Be dramatic about it. Be like, oh yeah, how's your sister's cat doing? Yeah, so like make it fun for them, but make them learn this position. Tell them to think about it. Breathe through here. Give them a reprieve. Now make them go right back to it. Okay, you know that position we were just in? Go right back to it. Make them prove they can get there. Getting them into the right position is much more effective than trying to do a bunch of fast reps, a bunch of heavy reps. Okay, so we've cleaned up their basics a little bit. So how are some ways that we can load the squat? If we want to challenge the core more because we're having some position problems up here, we get a lighter weight and we're going to hold it up high. That makes our heavy weight further away from our engine, which is our legs and the ground, or well, our feet against the ground. And we're going to hold up here. We're further away from the ground here than we would be here. So it makes our core work more because it's a longer lever arm. So we're going to be here. We don't want to flare the elbows out. We don't want them to hold like this because that's going to at some point limit how much weight they can have. So we'll be here holding everything, squeeze your chest, same thing, pull. And if we add weight, we may need to go back to our pauses and then drive yourself out. When we come to the top, we never want to shift our weight forward like that. And when I'm at the top, I'm still actively pushing through the ground here, pulling ourselves down, driving the ground out, active here. Pull ourselves down. I never want to clench my butt, especially on the way down. I never want to clench my butt. My glutes get long, my glutes get short. This is all about muscles getting long and short and the joint moving. So that's a goblet squat, holding up here. You could have a rack hold squat, which is harder. That's 2 kettlebells holding here. And we hold that rack position. I got one in this hand too. Make sure that we're here. So the corner of the kettlebell sits in between my pointer finger and thumb. My kettlebell will sit kind of on my shoulder, arm, and body. I don't want to be out here. I don't want to be out here. I'm holding here. I don't want my arms to flare out. I'm holding here, pulling down. A lot more core here because we have 2 of them. They're kind of out away from the center of our body, so it's going to challenge the core even more. A way to make this heavy, a way to go heavier, challenge the legs a little more. I'm going to hold here. Now, when I am down low, I don't, again, want space between my weight and myself. So when I go down, I'm going to reach that kettlebell back towards my heels a little bit. I don't hold it out here. Look, my weight shifted into my heels, and then I held this out here, and my brain, being the amazing computer that it is, just figured it out real fast how to balance myself. Hold the weight here. Now, what people are going to do is try to get that kettlebell down to the ground. Honestly, we don't care if the kettlebell gets down to the ground. We want our hips to go down to the ground. So we're going to go here, and you'll notice that kettlebell, I'm going to get to the bottom of my squat. That kettlebell doesn't reach. If I went here, I moved from my spine. I hit the ground, but I didn't do a good squat. I moved at my spine, which I don't want to do. Okay? So coach them up and tell them, your goal is not to get the kettlebell to the ground. The goal is to get your hips down as low as they can go under control and bring them back up. Now, let's say I go get that big 100-pound kettlebell because I'm a big, strong guy here. Now, that kettlebell's huge, and it's going to hit the ground. So if I go down into my quarter squat here, if I go down all the way here, look, I can hit the ground. It's still in a good squat position. So the ground's in my way. This is when we would bring in boxes. And you see us do this all the time. And what this does is make us taller. Again, my goal is not to have the kettlebell hit the ground. My goal is to get my hips down. Now I can go down to my super deep squat and keep in my good upright position because I'm not trying to go for the ground. I can get that full range of motion. So as we get a bigger kettlebell or we're holding a dumbbell, that's when we want to make the floor high or make ourselves higher from the floor so that we can clear that kettlebell. It's not because we're trying to reach the ground. If you see them consistently hitting the ground with good form, that's when we need to get the boxes, and that often comes when our kettlebells get bigger. Now, we talked about tall people. We talked about people with poor dorsiflexion in their ankles. If people cannot get themselves organized, and you see them going down and they're doing all sorts of weird, funny movements like this and everything's falling around, first trick is to put them on these heel risers, okay? And this is going to help that shin translate over that. And then magically everything up the chain gets into place. So we'll be here, pulling down, and again, reaching back for that reaching back for the heel here, but not sacrificing our spine position. So as I reach back, I'm just keeping my arms back. I'm not falling here. I'm not bending here. Once the hips stop going down, the the upper body has to go down. So if I go here and then start to move my upper body, my hips aren't moving, that's a fault. Just cue them to stop when the hips stop. You can help them that by little taps. So if I'm standing there coaching, my hips are going down, and I start to do this, we get back to the top, I'm here, my hips don't go anymore, give them a tap, stop. Now we push through the ground, and they're going to feel their legs working more that way. They can do that on the ground with a kettlebell. They could come, maybe do that with the barbell. So when do we use the barbell? We can get into barbell squats when a person wants to, or when they're very confident with it. If they're like, oh God, I don't know if I can do the barbell. And then we watch them squat and they're okay at it. That's not a good time to use the barbell. We want to be very confident here. We can always add more weight, or we can do other magical things that we'll kind of get into here when to make it more challenging for them when they're good at a goblet squat, but we don't have the barbell, or we're not confident enough to use the barbell yet. If they're very eager, they show you they're competent in that goblet squat or that low squat, they're competent in that, then we can try the barbell. Things the barbell does. One, the weight is way out away from our midsection, so that makes it tougher. We talked about in that rack hold squat how the weight's further away from the engine and the floor, so we have a longer lever arm. Same thing here. The weight's here. Also, the weight's behind us. It kind of puts us in a weird place. We'll show you front squats too. So the barbell adds a lot of complexity to this. If we're going to do a barbell squat, one, we always want to face the rack. We never want to be here. We never want to back into it and try to get rid of the weight. Coming here, we get under the bar, we get centered, we squeeze in, build that little rack. We take one step back. We do not have to go on the Oregon Trail journey and take 11 steps back here. We're here. Again, it's where do the hips go? Squeezing your shoulder blades, pulling yourself down. You'll see here, my knees are gonna, or my shins are gonna translate over my foot. I'm pulling my butt down. I maintain that posture. I drive out, pull myself down, weights even in my feet, drive myself out. With a barbell, you may see that they have to sacrifice just a little bitty bit of depth because it's a harder lift. Their core has to work more. That's fine, no problem at all. There won't be a ton of people in here barbell back squatting. We really need to make sure they're comfortable and they feel good here and they're confident going into it. You could use a shorter bar like this one, all right, especially on smaller people. That's a good way to kind of introduce it. And then again, you can go back. We increase the complexity of the exercise, so maybe we go back to holding little pauses. If they're struggling with falling forward, the front squat is a great thing to utilize here. So they can come here. They're going to build themselves a little shelf right here. Then the bar is going to sit right here on the front, right like that. Our elbows have to stay high. If our elbows fall, then we don't have a shelf and the bar is going to fall. A lot of people don't have the wrist flexibility for that, so you can tie two straps on here and they can hold the straps on there. If they do have the wrist flexibility, great. If it's something that's really tough, we'll get two straps here. You can talk to one of the coaches about that if you're unfamiliar with that. So the way the front squat would work is we'd be here, we'd stand up, again, just one step back. Notice how my elbows are high. As I go down, those elbows are almost reaching up taller. And you can see my nice posture. My hips dropped and my chest stayed up. And then I drive up. It's very important as we go down, as we drive up, we don't want the hips to shoot forward or back and up. We want our kind of chest to lead us, our torso really to lead us. Down, and then I'm staying up here like that. Keep those elbows high. We want that pointing forward. The more they go down, one, the less core we're using, and two, the more stress we're putting on the wrist, and three, the more we're tempted to drop that weight. So that's how we would kind of introduce the front squat. Let me show you real quick how we would tie those straps on. So we'd get the straps here. You would just loop the strap in like normal, get it taut. When you grab, you want to grab close here to the bar. You don't want to grab way out here, lever arms, okay? And how they would grab that, then this helps a lot of people who are like, man, my wrist just doesn't do it. So you would center, make sure everything's in center. Grab here, reach up and under, holding here, and you can see how much easier it is on my wrist. And then I just complete my squat and drive back up. When I walk the squat in, whether I'm doing a back squat or a front squat, I'm going to walk the bar all the way in then drop it. We don't want to try to place it. Don't do that. Walk it in, set it down. We want to make sure, again, we're never backing into this. We always want to be able to visually see when we're racking the bar. Okay, so we went over special populations with a bilateral squat. Let's talk about a rear foot elevated split squat. So now we're using one leg at a time, okay? Now we can do the split squats in a few ways. Sometimes we can keep both feet on the ground here. You could still use a slant board on the front foot if you needed. We're gonna go straight down and straight up. When I go straight down, and there'll be some exceptions to this, I wanna get my nose over my knee, over my toe, and I've got about 75% of my weight in my front leg, and I'm driving straight out. But look, the principles are the same. My torso's upright. My hips are what's dropping. Okay, my knee hit the ground. So what do? I need to clear the ground a little bit by making myself further away from the ground. Boom. Now, if we're not pushing straight down, we have a tendency to slide here. How do we prevent that from happening? We create a little torque. We're going to talk a lot about torque throughout all these. So I'm going to pull my front leg back, my rear leg forward, create torque that holds me in place. So as I go down, this leg's pulling back, this leg's pulling forward. Nothing's moving, but that's literally the point. We don't want things to move. It's easy to move this way, which is going to get me real weak and out of control. So I intentionally pull the opposite way. I don't want this to go forward. I don't want this to push back. So I'm going to do the opposite motion here, and that's going to create the opposite forces, create a force that keeps me in the center. Now, that sucks. That's a lot of core work. Your legs are going to be fried on that, but that's the fucking point here, is to work the legs. Okay, so that's going to go a long way for them. Now, that's how we do split squats. Rear foot elevated split squat. This could be, we have these nice little risers here. You could do this on a bench. You could lower a barbell. You could rest it on the ISOFIT. You could rest it on the sled. There's a lot of things you can rest your foot on. How far out do we go? Put your butt on here. Don't sit here, hang out, and talk for 20 minutes. Put your butt on it. Whatever our working leg is going to be almost straight. I'm not locking my knee out. I've got a soft bend. I'm going to stand up here, weight up in this front foot, and then I put my foot up here, okay? So I've got a good distance. Now, as I go down, I'm going to rotate my pelvis over this femur. Again, hips are going down, torso staying up. I rotate, and then I open up as I come back. So my pelvis is going to rotate over this femur, and then I drive through the ground. Look where I end up here. Nose over knee over toe, weights in the middle of the foot, torso's tall. I drive the ground down. I'm never trying to pick the weight up. I'm trying to push earth down, okay? Again, here, we've got a lot of options. We can load one side, same side. We can load one side, opposite side. We can hold a kettlebell here. We can hold two kettlebells here. You can put a barbell on your back. You can do jumps. We'll go over that in a second here, but there's a lot of different things that you can do out of this split squat. We can do pauses. It's their first day doing split squat. We want to make sure they get in a good position. They've never done it before. How do we teach someone a good position? We use an isometric pause. We go down. Hey, breathe here. 5, 4, 3, 2, nose over knee over toe. You know where you're at. Okay, let's push the ground down. Make sure that we don't get a lot of movement here. If you see this, maybe give them a stick. They can give themselves a little support. Don't lean on that stick. Just give themselves a little support. Okay, now let's go over some exceptions. Let's say we have an athlete. Okay, somebody plays explosive sports, one of the high school kids, one of the college athletes, one of the pro athletes that's in here. We may do a little bit more plyometric. So let's say that we're jumping out of a split stance position. We're going to want the more athletic and the more explosive our movement is, the more it's going to move towards the front of the foot and out of the heel. We're never going to be on our tiptoes unless you have a ballet dancer, Amber. Okay, but we'll be more in the knuckle of the forefoot, midfoot, and forward. Okay, so if we're doing jump, we're going to be here, and you can see I'm not up on my toe, but my heel is floating just a little bit, and I can jump, and I want to keep my weight out of that back leg, especially when we do the regular squats too. Keep that weight out of that back leg. Okay. If we want to target our glutes more, we may get a little more lean in either our squat or our split squat. So we may, if we're trying to target glutes specifically, get a little more lean and lean back into the heel a little bit more and be a little bit more upright and have a little more forward to back translation so we can work on hip extension. So we're always asking a question, well, several questions. Who's in front of us? What are their abilities? What are their not abilities? What can they do? What can't they do? What is their goal? Are they wanting to be faster, more athletic? Are they coming out of a rehab situation and need to strengthen? Are they going for injury prevention? Are they coming off an injury? Do they want to grow a big old peach booty? What is their goal? What are they able to do? Okay, then we start simple. I don't care if it's somebody that can do a lot of things, especially if they're new to us. Make them prove they can do the simple things. If at worst, it's a good warm-up for them. Okay, cool. We did the isometric hold split squat. Holy crap, that was perfect. Great. We're good and warmed up now. Let's turn it up a notch. Add weight. Add speed. So if they're doing an isometric, okay, wow, that's amazing. That's so good. Second set, they come around. Okay, let's add speed. Now we can go in and out of it. Now look, I'm not going fast, but I'm going a lot faster than zero. Okay, cool. They did that really well. Maybe now I add weight. Okay, they did that really well. Maybe now I add more weight. Maybe I add the weight further away from the engine. There's a lot of different dials that we can turn to make this harder or easier in the squat. Ask questions. Experiment with this yourself. Take video of yourself. Take video of your clients. Ask other coaches around here. Ask people that you know and respect. Great people to kind of look for some advice in the squat. Katie St. Clair, Joe DeFranco, great people there with squats. You can kind of check those guys out. There's some other ones. If you hit Matt up, he'll give you some other names and stuff to watch. But read up on this, get some different ideas. If none of this made sense, if some of this made sense, whatever didn't make sense, ask questions. That's what we're here for, to help you become a better coach.